If you're a filmmaker watching this right now, or you know someone that is, suggest to them, hey, you should enter your nightmares into Horrific Hope Film Festival, the only film festival that is horror-centric and mental health focused. We are taking submissions currently right now for our 2023 season, both features and shorts, and submit your screenplays to get into our screenplay writing contest. Details are in the descriptions below. Now let's talk to the video. What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our channel, we create content like what you're watching right now simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I am a writer, podcaster here, and the director of our film festival entitled Horrific Hope, all of which you guys can find links to more in the descriptions below, along with podcasts, our social media, Patreon, and most importantly, our mental health resource library, as well as more movie reviews like this one right now. Make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button. And it has finally come. It has finally landed at our doorsteps. Jordan Peele's Nope. I feel like I have to call this an Us, Jordan Peele's Us, or Jordan Peele's Nope, because just saying the one-word title just doesn't quite feel right in my brain. So that's the reason for the title of this video. That's the reason that I will be referring to it in my review as well on Letterboxd and other social media platforms. But let's jump into it. So Nope tells the story of a brother and sister played by Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer, who inherit a ranch after the passing of their father, played by Keith Davids, and in the passing of that, they come to find out that they have been enduring aliens. First off, before I even start talking about this movie and kind of what I thought about like the plot or the acting or the writing or anything like that, let me just suggest this. If you're going to see this movie, please see it in IMAX. This is probably one of the only movies, if not the only movie, that I will suggest this year that you check out in IMAX, because the IMAX experience for Nope is absolutely immersive. The way that the screen draws you in, and it feels epic in scope, but also the sound that the score. Everything just feels like such an immersive experience watching this movie on an IMAX screen that I cannot suggest it any other way. If you end up watching this video after it already hit the Blu-ray, I suggest honestly having like a projector and watching it with surround sound and just like trying to recreate that IMAX experience as much as possible. Like with Us, I believe Nope will also kind of endure a little bit of the same criticisms. It's in the comparisons of Get Out, because Get Out is kind of like what a lot of people would classify as like a modern day masterpiece or modern day classic. And I rewatched Get Out earlier this week, and I love Get Out, but I love each of Peele's films for different reasons. I love Us for completely different reasons than I love Get Out. And when you look at those two movies, they're very distinctively different. Peele's Nope absolutely follows that same format. So let me just start off by saying this movie looks absolutely gorgeous. The cinematography by Hoyt van Hoytama, and if I mispronounce that name, I'm deeply sorry. Names are not my forte on this channel. Their cinematography job on this movie is absolutely incredible. It's simply stunning. It's breathtaking. And with that also, you also have Peele. The way that Peele sets up shots in this movie is just breathtaking. If I could put my thoughts about this movie into one word, I would say that walking out of this movie, it felt nostalgic. And what I mean by nostalgic is that this film doesn't feel like, yes, it has a lot of those modern day sensibilities, and of course Peele brings his signature subtext, and this is a movie much like my favorite director David Lynch, who creates films that are very good and very, very beautiful, but also at the end of the day, there's more to the surface than just a fun film. And I'm not going to try and dissect what Nope means or what it's trying to say in this video. I'm simply talking about what my general thoughts on this movie, spoiler free. We'll probably get into some of those into the podcast for Biscazing when we do this movie a little bit later this month. But all of that to say this about Peele's shots. I said this movie feels nostalgic because this movie feels like how the 1970s would make a sci-fi blockbuster or a sci-fi. It feels like the darker cousin of like Close Encounters of the Third Kind or E.T. or the McPherson Tape or a lot of these movies that like dealt with aliens but were like shot in certain ways. And the way that Peele sets up angles, they feel like those big blockbuster films of that era. And when I say this movie is epic in scope, that is a massive understatement, because this movie just feels so big, especially the climax of this movie. Wow. I'm not going to share my thoughts on the ending. That'll be for the podcast, but just being able to see fully just how certain angles and certain shots are set up, the climax feels like something that would be done by Spielberg. And that is such a new height for Peele that we haven't seen thus far. What I like about Peele coming into the sci-fi genre is that this is a genre that feels different than his previous two entries, but also at the same time, this kind of really brings a lot of new dynamics for both him as a writer and a director. I rewatched Get Out and Us in anticipation for Nope, and I can safely say that the character dynamic between Kaluuya's character and Palmer, they feel like something he's never tackled before. The brother and sister dynamic is probably one of the most interesting dynamics he's done so far. But it's also the first time that I've ever seen one of his films, and I've never been unnerved or drawn to the edge of my seat, but almost literally to the point of tears. And I really loved that aspect of this movie. On top of that, Kaluuya and Palmer both deliver great performances in this movie. We've seen what Kaluuya and Peele together look like. Obviously, Get Out is one of the best movies that has come out in the last 10 years. And to see the two of them reunited in this movie was a true treat. I want to talk about the spectacle of this movie is super refreshing, because I feel like now blockbusters largely feel dead if they're not attached to a universe or to a larger franchise. Just to kind of put this in perspective, I'm reading the top 10 highest grossing films from 2021. Spider-Man No Way Home at number 1, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings at number 2, Venom Let There Be Carnage number 3, Black Widow number 4, F9 The Fast Saga, 5, 6 is Eternal, 7 No Time to Die, 8 A Quiet Place Part 2, 9 Ghostbusters Afterlife, and 10 Free Guy. 9 out of 10 of those are big blockbuster spectacles that are part of a larger franchise and or are a sequel. Something like Jordan Peele's Nope come along and have that big blockbuster feel without having any attachment to any other existing property feels incredibly refreshing. And in a way, it also feels self-contained. I will say this now, here and now, that if this movie gets a sequel, I will be very sad. Probably say my biggest complaint about this movie is even Yeun. It's not like he necessarily delivers a terrible performance. It's just kind of how the film uses him. There's a plot line that is literally the cold open of this movie that has no resolution or brings nothing, and I mean nothing, to the surface. And again, this to me might be one of the areas of subtext that Peele is doing, and it is meant for further research. And I honestly can't wait to dive deeper into this movie. But just coming out of a first viewing experience, he brings nothing to the plot. And yes, I guess you could say that there is a tiny bit that he brings to the plot, but mostly the plot revolves around Kaluuya, Palmer, and this ranch. And Yeun is just kind of really underutilized in this movie. This is the longest movie that Peele has done to date, and with that, I want to say the pacing of this movie is almost immaculate. This movie gives you enough to really connect to, both emotionally, but also at the same time, it gives you enough to really hang on to and build to the aspect of blockbuster. And another reason it feels so nostalgic is because it goes under the principle of less is more. You never really see the aliens or extraterrestrials. I'm not going to say what it is, but you never really see the foreign objects until we get almost into the third act. Like, fully see them. Like, yes, they're like hidden between stuff, and I really admired that about this movie. And I think in terms of pacing, when you're talking about that less is more rule, that works with it in spectacular fashion. So let's go ahead and head to our Rorschach rating scale. I can give Jordan Peele's Nope a 4 out of 5. I truly admired this film. I think that this film is just a absolute blast. This movie does have a few things that it is saying in terms of subtext, so does have Jordan's signature appeal to it, but this movie honestly really spreads him as both a writer and a director because of the scope and just the massive fun nature that this movie has. Keke Palmer, Daniel Kaluuya honestly just give terrific performances in this movie. The pacing is done really well. There are a couple of lingering plot lines that don't really bring anything to the surface, but again, this is a movie, this is Jordan Peele, so this is probably a reason and a purpose for everything. So I would love to really kind of dive in a little bit deeper into this one, but for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and give us a 4 out of 5. This movie's a lot of fun, and if I'm being honest, I honestly can't wait to see it again. And now let's talk about some mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health and we talk about it for just a few minutes from the movie of which we're reviewing in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. There's a scene in the probably the second act of the movie where the three protagonists of this film are sitting around in a just kind of a burger joint, and they're kind of trying to distract themselves from the traumatic event that they've just had, and Kaluuya's character actually brings it up into the conversation and really kind of shuts it down, to which Palmer's character responds, "We're not trying to talk about that right now." And that hit me in such a profound way, because I feel like we view mental health the same exact way, that if a person is experiencing a traumatic event, especially as a man, I've experienced this countless times from my own personal experience, you're kind of met with, instead of a listening ear and someone who actually wants to validate the experience that you've gone through, 9 times out of 10, what you're going to experience is going to be something along the lines of buck up, buttercup, man up, or any number of bottle it up, bottle it, keep it down, like any number of those excuses, because mental health is so stigmatized to talk about. It's uncomfortable, yes, it's incredibly uncomfortable to hear someone be vulnerable and talk about how they're feeling and why they're feeling this way and what caused the feelings that they're currently feeling. Here today in hopes to encourage people to normalize conversations about mental health, because the more we talk about it, the less power it actually has. And at the end of the day, we just need to be more real and talk about these things, instead of wanting to talk about fandoms and wanting to talk about things we're passionate about. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but we can't use them as distractions when it comes to our own mental health, because the practice of bottling it up is more toxic to your mental health than actually hearing about it, than talking about it, I guess is a better way of saying it. As always, if you or someone you know is watching this video right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, depression, anxiety, alcoholism, etc., click the links in our descriptions below to check out our mental health resource library, and let us know what you guys thought about Jordan Peele's Nope. Make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button and hit subscribe on wherever you guys get your podcast from, because we're going to be talking about this movie in depth this upcoming Wednesday on our horror podcast, Abyss Gazing. So until next time, have a good week, guys.